So part of why we wanted to have you here, Amy, is because we wanted to put together a series that really talks about self-care and what self-care is. Nice. And, especially for people that are do overcome like some pretty serious life changes with their health, that's when you really learn what self-care is all about, I feel like. Because you have to go to all new lengths. I mean, for the time, and we're going to get into this now, is just the time commitment for you with this stuff is significant. So let's start by talking a little bit about your story. And I did have a little short post about it, but let's talk in a little bit more detail of what happened for anyone that may not have seen the post.
Okay. So I was thrown from a horse 27 years ago, and I broke my neck, 2 vertebrae in my neck and 1 in my back. And initially, I was completely paralyzed from my chest down. I had no feeling, no movement, and I couldn't breathe on my own. I was on a ventilator for 4 or 5 days. Luckily, I regained the ability to breathe pretty quickly, so that was nice. And then within a couple of months, I started to get a little bit of sensation back, a little tiny bit of movement. Like I had some movement in my quads, but like my hamstrings had no movement, very little bit in my calves, hardly anything in my feet. So I got a little bit of movement back, which was, anything is helpful, but it wasn't actually functional. There wasn't really anything I could do with it that actually made a difference in my day-to-day life, basically.
Right. And so now, I mean, so as far as like doctors were concerned, what was the prognosis? Were they just kind of like, this is it, this is going to be it for you?
Well, nobody ever said you'll never walk again. But nobody said you would either. It was kind of, with any spinal cord injury, you really just kind of wait and see what happens. Typically, if you're going to get any function back, then it happens within the first 2 years. And so by the time you're 2 years post-injury, you pretty much got everything that you're going to get. And so that's the level that you're going to stay at. So nobody ever really expected to see any improvement. And then when I was introduced to NeuFit 2 years ago, that was 25 years after I was injured. And so when we started seeing responses, it was just incredible. I mean, nobody would expect that. And then not only did we see just a little bit of response, like we're seeing tremendous improvements and, just amazing things that, are impacting my day-to-day life. Like my life is easier now, so.
And explain a little bit of even just the last year and a half or so, a little over a year, what that process has been for you.
So in the beginning, I was going into the therapy sessions 2 times a week. They were lasting about 45 minutes each. And most of it at that point was putting the electrodes on on the different muscles. And initially my therapist was having to move those muscles through the movement. So, like if he was trying to work on getting me to be able to pull my leg up when I'm laying down flat, he would be moving my leg through that. And I would be trying to think about it and trying to do it on my own. And then eventually it got to the point where I was able to do those movements on my own. So once we got enough of the core muscles working, then we started doing more functional things like learning to crawl. So we basically took it the same way that a baby learns to, get to the point of walking. So it was like learning to roll over on my own, learning to crawl, and then, be up on my knees and, different things like that. So everything started to get as more muscles came on board and started working and started getting stronger, then we just worked with those muscles and just progressed. And, I got to the point where I was doing modified squats. So, I had some bands that were kind of helping to support some of my weight, but I was actually doing the squatting motion and being able to push up with my legs and things like that. And then we eventually got to the point where I'm walking with a walker now. So,
that's incredible. Awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
especially because you're talking 27 years. We're not like, and not that any period of time is a little bit of time, but I mean,
Right.
that's a lifetime for a lot of
Yes.
people and especially people that are watching this, that's their entire life so far,
Right.
or most of it. So, I mean, what was the process like for you once, once you wake up and your whole life is different? Like, I can't imagine.
It's actually, especially in the beginning, it was very overwhelming because, after you've been paralyzed for 25 years and you just, you learn to live with what you can do, and you do what you can, and it just becomes your new normal. And so then when things started to change, and when things started to change functionally, like within a couple of weeks, I was having functional differences in what I could do. So like, I think the first thing that I noticed that was a big functional thing was when I would get out of bed in the morning, normally I would sit up and I would have to kind of use my arms to like scoop my legs off the side of the bed to be able to get over into my wheelchair. And one day I woke up and my legs just moved over on their own.
Oh, wow.
I did not have to pick them up anymore.
I just imagine like this shock moment, right? Where you're just like,
it's complete shock. And I kind of was thinking, did I dream that? Was that real? Am I really awake? Type of thing, So, and so then once those things started happening, and I started seeing these changes, and I started to see the muscles in my legs grow, because obviously after not using them for so long, they had, atrophied, so they were super, super thin. It's a very overwhelming feeling, just like, I can't believe this is actually happening. I can't believe that there's this actual real possibility that I will not have to use this wheelchair anymore. And, because you just, after all this time, it's not that it never completely goes out of your mind. You always hope, okay, there's going to be some sort of a cure. There's all these, there's a lot of research going on, but it just doesn't seem like, it's really that practical to think about that all the time, and it's been so long and nothing has changed. So then to see all these changes, it's just overwhelming. I mean, there were times where I just cried, when something new had happened, because it was just so incredible.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, that's intense, like that's a super, that's heavy, when it's like, especially to see where you are now and looking back at that point, of just like,
right.
I mean, there was going to be a lot of things you weren't going to be able to do anymore, at least not the same way. And like horseback riding, that's not like safely, you can't even really do that, because you need full functionality of your legs. So walk us through what your self-care has entailed the last year. Like, how many sessions were you going a week? How long were they? Because obviously you're gonna have to make time for it to even once you start getting the feeling back, you have to start building the musculature. You have to support the change of your musculature and the changes in your body. So what has your weekly regimen been like?
So initially I was going twice a week for about 45 minutes each session. And then as we started seeing improvements, we decided that we should bump it up. And so now I go 3 times a week, and my sessions are about an hour and a half long each time. So there's that. And then I also, try to do things at home. One, I'm just, even when I'm just sitting at my desk doing work, I'm trying to move my legs around and, put my feet on different surfaces to stimulate, different nerve endings and things like that. So when the weather's nice, I try to get into the pool and do exercises in the pool. So that could be, 2 to 3 times a week for an hour a day or something like that. So yeah, it's a big time commitment, but it's just so incredible. And I just keep seeing, improvements that it doesn't feel like it's a big time commitment. Like, I can't wait to get to therapy.
Right.
It's an experiment. It's an experiment now.
Yes,
yeah.
It is.
So are there any other, because I'm big on experimenting with the body. Is there anything else that helps to improve your connection with your legs, meditation or focused movement or
visualization? Are there other
anything
elements
like that?
I mean, I'm not doing any sort of meditation or anything like that, but there's a lot of visualization. Like I do a lot of visualizing, what it what it is to walk. And I dream of walking all the time, so yeah, there's a lot of, or even just like as I'm learning new things, it's a lot of, as I'm doing the movement, visualizing what it should feel like. So even if it's not fully normal yet, I'm visualizing what it should be like, and all of that. So then on top of that, I also go and see a chiropractor who does a lot of applied kinesiology type work with me. And I do that once a week, and that's about a half hour long.
So, I mean, this is a part-time job as far as hours, right? It's like, and you still have your full-time job that you're working.
Yes.
And you travel for work. And, part of the reason your story is so impressive, just aside from the fact that you spent 27 years in a wheelchair ever since the accident, but also, how often people have excuses. I travel too much. I don't have time. For whatever their goal is. But like you said, your ability to walk depends on your commitment, and it's not going to happen tomorrow, and it's not going to happen, the progress you made last year is crazy, like crazy. And so for you, I could only imagine it's not a question, this isn't just self-care. This is like self-ability, to have something back. So that's partially what we like to talk about, and what's so inspiring is just your commitment to yourself, because it is really easy to fall into that just deep sadness, which is rightfully there, absolutely. I mean, you had kids in that time. You did your best to lead the life that you dreamt in spite of the accident.
Right.
How many kids do you have?
It's kind of like, I think I don't think I made a conscious choice of this, but I think it's just kind of the way that my personality is. But anytime that something bad happens to you, no matter what it is, if it's as life altering as a spinal cord injury, or even just, you get fired or something, from your job, we always have two choices in how we react to it, and you can just curl up and be depressed and not want to go and do anything, or you can just go, okay, this happened, let's deal with it. What can I do? I've never been one to focus on what I can't do. I just focus on, okay, this is what I can do. And I really haven't let it stop me from doing what I want to do.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. I mean, you've made hard decisions. Like, I'm doing this. So what is your hard decision now?
Now the goals have totally changed.
What is your decision that you're evolving into right now?
I don't feel like I have any hard decisions right now. I think that, everything is just moving along so smoothly, and I feel like I'm in a really good position as far as like with my work. I work from home, and my supervisors are, 100% behind what I'm doing with my therapy. And so they don't mind that I take time out in the middle of the day. I'll work early or late or whatever, sometimes on Saturday morning or whatever to make up the time so that I'm, still putting in what I need to do for work. But, so I couldn't, everything is just falling into place. So it's I don't have any hard decisions at the moment.
You know what, that's kind of that's also where we make these decisions and then allowing ourselves to be present. I actually greatly appreciate your presence, because if you were so set on the next goal, you wouldn't even get to celebrate the fact of where you are, which is already epic. Right. And that's all most people ever dream of, is just the possibility, not even the ability, the possibility. Right. So, right. Like he said, we've been watching for the last little over a year of this progress of watching through via Alex Sharfin, seeing you kneel. And we've been like these cheerleaders on the side, just like sending you energy and excitement and celebration.
Yeah, it's been brilliant. Yeah. Absolutely inspiring. So thank you. Really awesome for that. And thank you for coming to talk with us.
Of course. Thank you.
I think the world needs to see what you're doing and so that people can be inspired, because there's a lot, we work with a lot of people, and a lot of people are feeling very hopeless and lost, and, they're feeling dysfunctional. They're feeling
overwhelmed.
They're overwhelmed, like they can't do things.
Mm-hmm.
So for you to be able to do all that you've done and to continue moving forward with your life, doing wonderful things, is an inspiration to people who have lost hope in themselves. So thank you. Thank you for everything that you've endured to get you to this place right now. Thank you.
Thank you. That's really nice. I mean, it humbles me when people say things like that I can have an effect like that on somebody, because, I just feel like, I'm just little old me doing my thing, and so the fact that I am affecting other people's lives is really, just an incredible feeling.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
It is actually a really big deal.
Well, and like we said at the beginning, and you're still a mom, and you still have kids,
Right.
Everyone can get lost in the I'm busy, I don't have time, my kids' needs, my spouse's needs, my job's needs, everyone else's needs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy to make find time for other people.
Right.
It's a lot harder. And yes, you have a very motivating reason to, but really for
Right.
anyone watching, it's getting to that like tipping point of progress, because I'm sure you did notice some immediate transformations or some noticeable movement in your just in the growth or the shift. But so often it's just people watch and they get so hopeless to the idea that it could actually be different, especially if now with Google and WebMD and they read the statistics and then they're seeing themselves always in the losing side of the statistic.
Right.
Even if it was 50-50, they're like, yeah, but I'm one of the people that's in the 50 that can't,
Right.
So in meeting this company NeuFit, which is where you're doing a lot of this exercise, how did you end up meeting this company in particular?
So a friend of mine, Jeff Davis, is friends with Rick Doherty, who is one of the trainers at NeuFit. And I guess he was in there one day and they were talking about how the machine was, having some effect on people with spinal cord injuries. And he said, hey, I know somebody with a spinal cord injury. And so he connected me with them. And when I first went in, I did a little bit of research about the machine and all of that beforehand, but there wasn't really a lot written up about what it could do for spinal cord injury. So it's kind of a new thing that they're using it for. So I really didn't know what to expect, but I just went in and I thought, I'll go in for the evaluation and just see what happens. Like I had zero expectations. I thought, well, if I get even a little bit back, that's better than nothing. If nothing changes, then that's okay. Like my life hasn't been horrible. I'll be fine. So I really just went in with zero expectations. And then it was kind of funny because after I left after the evaluation, I kind of had this weird feeling and I wasn't really sure what it was or why I was feeling that way. And really what it came down to is they were testing all of these muscles and stuff in my legs and they weren't working. And I was kind of a little bit sad after I left because it reminded me how much I can't do, where I just don't focus on that. So it kind of brought it all back like, wow, there really is a lot of stuff that I can't do that I don't even pay attention to. And so it was kind of an odd feeling after I first left that evaluation. And then the next day, my legs felt stronger. And then 2 days later, I woke up in the middle of the night and I was able to pull my knee up to my chest. And I had not ever been able to do that since the injury. And I freaked out and I was like, okay. And just like you said, like finding the time to make time for it, I was thinking, it's a good 35 or 40 minute drive away from where I live. And I'm thinking, okay, how am I going to fit this into my schedule? I've got to work, I've got to do this. At that time, some of my kids were still at home and, there was a lot of different things, but I was like, I just have to figure it out. Like I have to find a way to make this work because it's just too incredible to pass up.
Yeah. And I love that you brought that up because a lot of people, especially when you first get into, I guess that trying to move forward phase of whatever it is, you have to first get a very clear picture of where you are, and that cannot be pretty. And especially if we haven't spent the time to really look at why we can't do something, like you said, you were able to see all of the limitations. It was like that slap in the face of like, it's worse than I thought.
Exactly.
And that's the scariest part of the whole process. That is the scariest part.
Yeah. Sometimes it is. It's just like really taking a hard look at where you are, and obviously I knew that at some level, but I just, I didn't try to move those muscles in those ways because I knew they didn't work, so it was like, yeah, so it was, but I think a big part of it is just being open to the possibility. You know, like I could have said, when he said, hey, do you want to, you know, take a look at this? I could have been like, you know, I've been injured for 25 years. Nothing's going to change. Why bother?
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because, you know, in my experience and the people that I've been working with and people that have asked me to work with them, I asked them about alternative therapies and they're like, well, my doctor said it's not going to work, so no. You know, and people shut it down. So you know, your ability to be like, all right, I'm gonna, let's go for it. I mean, what do I
have to lose?
Right. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought.
Yeah, so many people that I know and so many people that have come to us to work with us are like, well, my doctor says it's not going to work, so no. You know, and for you to be able to be open-minded enough and just open enough, period, even if you're not open-minded, you're just open
right.
doing it was awesome. When I heard, maybe 5 years ago, I hurt my back and I herniated L5 and S1 and cracked a vertebra. And I was unable to walk for 3 months. And I had a bunch of chiropractic done and all of this other stuff. And they told me that I'd never lift heavy objects. I'd never run. I'd never jump. When they did the neuromuscular testing, they said they don't understand how I was walking because the nerves all down my right leg are not firing. So yeah. So, you know, I said, I'm walking. That was the hard decision. So it wasn't like a gradual. I was like, I'm walking. So
right.
I made that decision. And then I went and I created my own programming and I did some alternative stuff. And I'm in an awesome place. So it's, you know, giving these things that chance, that go, and not having other people have the final say on your body.
Or your imagination.
Or your imagination is so important for people to be able to see that. For people to be able to see, like, listen, you know, the doctor said or this or that, but, you know, I'm gonna go for it anyway. And
right.
Look at you. I mean, it's awesome.
Well, and like you said, it was something you couldn't really find research on, the fact that it would even work for your particular injury. And the thing is, research takes a while and it takes money. So something could be out 20 years before people know that it's something that works, but there's not the proof yet. So people will be like, well, I'll believe it when I see it. And it's like, the answer could be out there right now if you're willing to be the person that's before the research, because someone discovered it works.
Right.
You know, when you look at the education of physicians and anybody in medicine or pharmaceuticals or whatever, the textbooks are years old. It takes years to make textbooks. And then they're selling them and it's like, listen, we have to sell these textbooks. We have to sell these texts. So this is what medicine is based off of 10 years ago. You know, research from 10 years ago. So the stuff that's coming out now, people are not grabbing onto because somebody in the lab coat doesn't say that it's approved. You know,
right.
You know, for you to, like I said, I'm really excited that you did this because this is what I'm always talking to people. Go for it.
Just try it. What do you have to lose?
Yeah, awesome.
And how is your family responding? You know, I mean, obviously they're thrilled. But when you first, you know, I don't know if you woke up that night, you felt the extra movement could get your knee up. Like, did you lean over and just like, hey?
Yeah, I mean, it was absolutely incredible. Like, I couldn't wait to, you know, like tell people. And at first I didn't really open it up to everybody. Like, obviously I was telling my kids and my siblings and, you know, and like my mother-in-law and all of that. And so just very, very close people. And I was telling the people that I worked with, but it was like, I wasn't really ready to like open it up to everybody, like on Facebook. And cause I was still getting used to the idea myself. Like when I would talk about it, I was still tearing up all the time, you know, when I would say something, you know, that happened. And one of the really neat things is that, we started a group chat. I'm one of 6 kids, and we started a group chat with all of my siblings, and I started giving them like daily updates on, you know, this is what I did today. And I mean, and there were definitely in the beginning, it was daily progress. Like today I did this, today I did this. And so, so that's been a really neat thing that, you know, my siblings and I have all gotten closer because of this, because we live in different parts of the country, so we don't see each other all the time. And, you know, it's just been really neat to share with them. And they're, you know, my siblings, my family, you know, my kids, everybody, they're just as excited as I am, you know, like like they'll cry when they see videos, or they'll cry when they hear the new updates, you know, right along with me, like we're all bawling at the same time, you know. So it's been really a really neat experience.
Well, because it goes deeper, you know, even as much trauma was involved with that happening to you, right? It affects everyone around you too. So
right.
It's also tapping back into the idea that anything is possible. We all watch this growing up in cartoons and Disney movies, and then we reach a point that we get completely disillusioned, right? Mm-hmm. That we're just like, well, but you have to be realistic, or you need, you know, you've got responsibilities and things that you need to do. And so when something like this happens, you know, on externally, it's like, oh, wow, Amy had this miracle happen. And it's like, well, kind of. I mean, you know, the timing and everything is certainly magical and incredible, the timing in the space. And it's that you were open to the possibility that it could be different.
Right.
You know, because if your friend calls you and is like, yeah, so I met this guy that's got this machine thing that he said might help you walk again. And you're like, what?
Yeah. Well, and even at that point, nobody even said it's going to help you walk again. You know, like even the people at NeuFit did not really anticipate that it was going to have this much of a change. Like nobody, not that they didn't, but we just didn't know.
Yeah.
So everybody at NeuFit, they're like my second family now. You know, I mean, I'm there all the time. I love all of those guys there. And, you know, they're just as excited with all the progress too. I mean, they're going crazy also.
So what have you learned through this process and, you know, since this change? Because it would literally just change the way that you approach a lot of things, you know, for such a core thing for so long to change. How has this impacted your life mentally?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it just really makes you realize that nothing, like just because you're in a situation, it doesn't have to be that way forever. You know, like there's always a possibility that something's going to change, and you should always seek the possibilities and be open to them. And, you know, no matter what it is, you just, if there's something that comes along, at least listen to it and see if it might work for you, you know?
Yeah. I mean, this fits right in the vein of what we're doing. We're actually writing a book, and, you know, we have a theme called Expand to Experience. And what we're teaching people is that when they step outside of the bubble of what they know already, there's a wonderland of possibility outside of that bubble. And that bubble, it was what you know, and you stepped outside and you did this program, you know, you started working with these people, and look what happened. And it's just stepping outside of that, of what you know, stepping outside. So you're expanding your experience, and your experience is expanded as a result, you know?
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's really, you know, I think, you know, for the 5 days of self-care thing that we're doing, I think this is awesome. And I think that a big part of self-care is taking a leap, you know?
Right.
Yeah. So do you have anything that you could, to all the people who are watching this and who are going to watch this, is there anything that you would tell them, recommend them to do as far as self-care is concerned?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is finding the time to take care of yourself, because, you know, it's true. Most of us are more worried about, you know, taking care of somebody else and making sure their needs are met, or just doing the day-to-day stuff that you have to do to get by. Like, oh, I have to go to work because I have to have money to pay my bills. And, you know, like, but you really need to be open to making sure that you're getting, you know, you're taking care of yourself, and and not just, you know, day-to-day taking care of yourself. Like, what can you do to really improve anything about you? You know, do you need to improve your diet? Do you need to exercise more? Do you need to just work on being happier? Or, you know, whatever it is, like, take the time to spend time on yourself, you know, and make yourself a better person, because it makes your life better. You know, you're more happy.
Well, and it improves everyone around you's life.
Exactly.
Right? That's the thing, is when you understand that when you take that time for yourself, it shifts you and it shifts everyone around you. They can't help it. Like, how could anyone, I mean, we're not even directly proximal to you yet. We're going to make it happen though.
Right.
You're not that far from us. So we will.
Right.
But even the way that you impact us, you know, and we never even had the in contact communication yet, but it's honestly like, it can be a hard thing to receive for sure, you know, like on your side, but honestly, you transform everyone that comes in contact with you just by you being you and being a part of this journey that you're on. It's incredible, you know, because in those moments, if someone wants to give up and it's just a moment and they're like, wow, you know, if Amy can stand and walk 600 feet, like I can get through this, even if it's hard,
Right.
and allow the crying, allow the emotion. It's all valid, you know. There's a lot of hard stuff that comes with this life experience, and there's always other possibility.
Right, right. And, you know, that's been one thing where, I wouldn't say, I mean, I'm kind of a private person as far as like, I'm very open with the people that I know, but I'm not one who shares everything on Facebook and all of that. So the first time that Alex shared a video, and of course, Alex knows a million people and it got very far out there. And I was really, really overwhelmed with that. And I thought, okay, this is kind of crazy. But then it took a lot of courage actually for me to start posting the videos myself and doing all of that, because it's a little bit scary putting yourself out there and being vulnerable, and, you know, but the response that I got from people when they were saying, you know, well, one, they're just their encouragement, knowing that people were, you know, like rooting for me, like that's awesome. But then when I was getting people who were saying that I was inspiring them and, you know, how it was affecting their lives and things like that was just, it was just crazy, you know. And so now I kind of feel like I need to keep sharing it, you know, because if I can help even just one person on that day for 5 minutes, you know, feel like there's a possibility for whatever is happening in their life, like that's incredible.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think if you're willing to spend another just couple minutes with us, if anyone has any questions, we have a chat box open if they're tuning in live from Zoom, or if you're streaming it from YouTube. If anyone wants to pop into the chat box if they have any questions. But I feel like you really covered it. And I honestly, like, I'm so grateful for your courage to kind of sit in the discomfort of being seen in this way, because this hasn't defined you, you know, you didn't let the accident define you. So it can be confusing to have the recovery define you as well.
Right.
You know, it's kind of like a weird juxtaposition. And it is going to, and will continue to inspire a lot of people for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, that was actually one of the it's funny that you brought that up. That was one of the funny things, is that like I never identified myself as being somebody who is disabled, or I never thought about, you know, the chair as who I am or anything like that. So then to start, that was all I was talking about for a long time, that it was very foreign to me, because I just always, you know, like if you ask me about myself, the fact that I used a wheelchair would be the very last thing that I mentioned. Like it's not the main core of me. So then talking about my injury and what I can and can't do, it was very strange for me to, you know, make that the focus, because it never has been.
Yeah. Well, it's awesome and courageous. I'm so grateful that you are, really. And, you know, it doesn't look like we have any questions right now, but, you know, I invite anyone that is watching this after the fact, you know, message in this string, you know, if there's something that you have. And also just being mindful, like don't go crazy stalking people on their Messenger and Facebook.
Right.
You know, like everyone knows like proper personal boundaries. So I'm just going to
Etiquette.
Facebook etiquette. But again, Amy, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. And for anyone that's tuned in, thank you for tuning in live. We're grateful that you carved out that time, because ultimately this is for you, right? If you took this time for you, just to expand your own perception of what you experience, is you time. And that's amazing as well. So again, thank you, Amy, so much.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
You're brilliant.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're gonna get you a cape with an A on it. You know, superhero garb. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, guys.